Welcome traders. Today is June 17th and I'm going to be making my daily recap on the stocks I traded today and my thought process and what I thought going into each trade. So the first stock that I took was ILAG. I'm a short bias trader, so I took the stock short. Unfortunately, it would have been a really nice trade, but I missed almost the entire move. Now, I saw the stock popping up. Initially, when I saw it pushed above this 480 level, I thought it wouldn't break 5. But the moment it broke 5, I kind of just backed off. I wanted to see if this one was really parabolic or if it was going to gap and crap. And, it pushed to 550. And in the same candle, dropped all the way back to $3.87. Now, I had a few orders ready. My thought process was I really wanted to get in at the 480, risking the 510 level. But when it dropped in that 1 minute, it dropped from 550 all the way down to about $4, $3.90, $4 level. And given that large drop, I really did not want to chase it. I mean, recently there has been a lot of parabolic runners, and if you get caught on the wrong side of a parabolic runner, especially when you're short, I mean, this thing could push $3 to $4 and you could be blowing up your account in seconds. So what happened was it pushed to 550, came back to around this $4 level. It tried another push, rejected 450, and truthfully, at this point, I probably should have taken a short. Even on the 1 minute candle, you can see the rejection, the lower highs, and even the lower lows too. It was just generally trending down. But I mean, in real time, it's really hard to take this trade. I just did not want to get stuck on the wrong side of this move, given the fact that my initial entry was, or my initial plan was to short on this $485 level. So trying to short 380 more than $1 down was a really, really tough pill for me to swallow. I wanted to wait to see if there was some sort of consolidation, some sort of pop where I can get in on the short side. It never came. And when it reached the bottom at this 280 level, I mean, it was essentially over. I do think I took one trade on this. Now, I believe I shorted around $3 and $3.10. Somewhere in that, I think I shorted 310 initially, added at the break below 3. It was a quick scalp, and I covered in the 280s. Now I can double check here. So I made $290, average in 304. So based on 2 entries, so about 310 and $3, and I exited about 286 on average. I mean, if you look at this chart, shorting at 310, $3, getting out 280s, you're basically scraping the bottom of the barrel. Generally, I don't like promoting these type of trades, and I don't like these type of trades, but I have a set of rules and I have a set of stats that tells me what I can and can't do. So because the stock started at 315, I knew that the moment it broke down below the starting point, there was a percentage, which I probably will talk about in a later video, but there's a percentage that it will generally drop below it. And because I knew this, I said I can take the short, I can risk this top right here around 350, maybe even 360. And if you keep your losses tight, if you keep it tight and you have generally a high win rate strategy, you're going to be fine more times than not. So I covered the 280s. I think the average was 286 as the numbers show. And that was a quick $290. If I got in at the 480, if I got in the $4, these would have been much better entries. But I just relied on my stats. I said, if it's going to drop, it's going to drop below this 315 level. And if it does, we can get in for a quick scalp because we know we missed the move. It was going to be a quick in and quick out, and that's what we did. So that's trade number 1. But if you look at this chart throughout the entire day, you can kind of see it consolidating in this range between $2.80 and $3. So I was never really in danger, but the fact that it's not dropping in this range and given this huge move where, I mean, over the course of 5 minutes, it accounted for, I mean, I want to say at least like more than half the day's volume, you have to be very cautious because whoever dumped the stock, whoever shorted it, they're all stuck and there's no liquidity left in the stock. I remember when I was checking the price, probably around 11 a.m. in the morning, this stock had about a 30 to 40 cent spread, which is absolutely insane. It's just not tradable. And if you're stuck on the short side, or even if you're stuck long, it's very difficult to get out of position like that. And if you look at the 5 minutes, you can see it tried to make a, break below this 280 to 269. And after that, it just slowly grind back up. And again, this is based on no volume at all. If you look at the 5 minute candles, you're probably seeing like 932 shares, 3,000 shares, 3,000, 2,600. So 2,000 or 3,000 shares every 5 minutes is just not tradable, right? So very fortunate I got out, trusting my stats, bagged $290. And yeah, I mean, it could have been better, could have been worse, but that's what trading is. If you know what you're doing, if you can define your risk, you will more likely than not be okay. And I told myself what my risk was. I got in, I got out quickly, and either outcome, you have to accept the profit and the loss if it goes against you. So that's trade number one. Now, the second trade that I took was OBAI. This one was a little bit iffy. Now, prior to today, OBAI, so this is June 16th, it ran from 54 cents to about $1.30. And you can clearly see there's a double top at $1.30. Now, it closed roughly around this $1 level, and in the after hours, fades to about 90 cents. Typically, if a stock makes a move and holds about half of it, it's considered still strong. It's still considered strong. So that's kind of what the stock did. 54 cents to about $1.30, pushed up about 80 cents. Half of that's 40 cents. So 90, 40 cents plus 40 cents, about 95. So it closed at about $1, even in the after hours, 95 cents. So it held up about half. This morning, I saw it moving at 8:20. It pushed from about 94 cents again back to $1.50. I was actually short this stock in the 120 range. And once I saw this top here, my gut instinct was this was going to fade. Unfortunately, I was wrong. Now, I still made money because I took a starter size. It was a size that I took knowing that I had a cushion on the day, that if it goes against me, shorting the 120s, top at 140, it's about 12 cents. I'm not in with tremendous size because it's my starter position. So I could take the loss without too much emotion. I could add to my position to get a more full position. But once it made this push, I had to hold it. It wasn't breaking new highs. It wasn't breaking down. It was kind of consolidating. And you can kind of see up until about 11:30, 11:25 or so, it was consolidating in this 120 to 130 range. And in the morning, it pushed a little higher, had a failed breakout. But for the most part, it was consolidating around yesterday's intraday high, the 130s. And my average, I think I shorted around 120s and I added in the 140s. So my average was 130s. So even at 130s, after seeing this failed breakout, I was not worried. I generally am not too concerned after this huge red candle because even though it tried to break 140 a few times, it didn't. So you're generally just holding and waiting for the fade, which it did happen. Fades about 112 by 11:30, 11:30, 35, and again at 12:40. Now, this trade wasn't as clean as I would have liked, and you can see that I faded more later on, but the reason is because yesterday the stock traded about 498 million shares. So that's kind of a lot of shares. Let's check the flow of the stock. So we have OBAI, and you can kind of see about 15 million shares. So on the daily, you can see that it's downtrending, hit a low of about 43 cents. This was last month, and it's been downtrending since, well, Trade Zero only shows me up until February of this year, probably after a reverse split at $38, but I mean, it's lost so much of its value that it's just not even, I don't even know how much this is. Probably like 97% of its value or more. I have no idea. Anyways, it made a huge fade, but the main problem that I had with the stock was because yesterday traded about 480 million shares, 498 million shares, with a flow of about 15 million, you're looking at about 33 times flow rotation. So when the flow is rotating 33 times, I mean, you can generally use the support and resistance. You can see what the consolidation levels are. It's roughly about 90 cents, 90 to about $1 range. And that's kind of where I expected this to fall in the morning, but it kind of held out longer than I expected. It's at this flow rotation, it's very, very difficult to find out where the buyers and sellers are. People are generally short on this stock because this chart is as ugly as it gets on the daily, 38.50 to about 103 right now. But when the flow is rotating that many times, you have no idea where anybody's stuck. You have no idea where the bag holders are. You don't know where the long and shorts are. If people got out, if they didn't get out, if they short in the 50, 60 cents range, or if they end up buying. So it's very difficult to read a stock like this. But even today, still 135 million shares. So this was definitely going to be a heavy stock to trade. Very choppy, a lot of churn. And if you trade something like this, you have to have a lot of patience. You can't, it's not like ILAG, where you see this quick pop and quick drop. It's not going to happen. I mean, ILAG only had about 1.4 million shares on the day. Meanwhile, OBAI actually hit SSR, had about 135 million today, 498 million yesterday. So you're looking at over 630 million 2 days on a 15 million float stock. So very, very high churn, very, very, very algo and market makers driven. So a lot of players are in the stock. And what you want to do is you want to take a position where you're comfortable holding for a longer period of time. Generally, I don't like holding stocks for that long, especially if they're this choppy. But once I got in and I realized that it was going to try to churn me out, I had to hold. So I double checked my stats. I knew that between this 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. time frame, that I was probably going to get my best exit. Unless, of course, you want to hold to end of day. But according to my stats, it told me this time frame here was going to be my best exit. And that's where I exited most of my position. I calculated about 24% drop on this one. So 24% of $1.52 was about $1.16. So that's where I got out half my position. I got out another half at $1.18. And I gave some money back. I was not happy with my last partial. After this mini push back above 120, I decided to exit, and I covered at 123. So it's not a huge deal, but it would have been cleaner if I actually covered the break of 120, the exact break. But overall, I got the meat of the move, so I can't complain. It was a good trade overall. It was a downtrend. I didn't really like the price action on this, but if you have stats to back you up, to tell you what you can and can't do, where the low of day, the average drop percentage, and the float rotation, and the type of stocks you should and shouldn't be trading, this can genuinely really help you. And that's kind of what happened today. So I made about $600 on this one. So that put me about $892 on the day. It's not too bad for a small account. I mean, I don't even have enough to satisfy the PDT rule in the US on this account, but I'm not trading the US, so I guess that doesn't really apply, right? So there were other stocks that I was considering, but I mean, I'm going to show you a quick list here. If you look at this, you can kind of see how much the borrow fees for some of these tickers are. OBAI was the one I shorted, was 1.5 cents. ILAG was 10 cents. Luckily, I borrowed before it was that high. WYHG was 14, CLWT was 14, EHGO 60 cents, ELTX was 1.2, UTSI 24, LNAI 20 cents. So even if I wanted to take a lot of these other stocks, I know there's a few really good runners today. I think CLWT was one of them. I'm a short bias trader. I can't. I mean, this was just so nasty, but I can't. I just can't take it. I generally don't borrow shares if they're over a certain amount, and I don't want to pay 14 cents to borrow shares, especially if I don't have the conviction that I'm going to short immediately. And I had no way of knowing after this push to $5 that I was going to fade all the way back to $1.50, right? And if you cannot, if you don't know where the stock's going to go, I mean, it held $2. It opened at $2.50, and it held $2 all the way until about 1:40 p.m. So, I mean, this range was so small, it was so tight, 50-60 cent range, and you would have to pay 15 cents just to short the stock. This is not including commissions, and if you are wrong, you're adding another layer of expense and fees to your P&L. So generally, I don't take these shorts. There's plenty of action in the market nowadays. There is no reason why I need to pay 14 cents unless I have the conviction that it would do this. But even then, you have to find a level where you're comfortable with. And if you're paying that much borrow fees before you take a trade, I'm going to be carrying a lot of emotional baggage into the trade. So if I borrow hypothetically 3,000 shares, 3,000 shares at 14 cents, I'm paying my broker almost $430 just in borrow fees before I even make any money. And if let's take the stock for example. If I short the open, and this was still above VWAP. In fact, this range was so tight, it's been hugging the VWAP. But let's just say I take it right at the open. Let's just say 258. The high or the pivot, I would say, is probably around this $2.84 to $3 range, depending, what you actually think. I think is closer to 280s. So if I had to risk about 20-30 cents, and let's say I do take a stop loss, I risk 30 cents, and I'm wrong. 30 cents on 3,000 shares, 900, plus the borrow fees of $430. I'm down about $1,400 after commissions. That's a lot, right? You're down roughly, if it's $1,400 and 3,000 shares, you're down about on average 45 cents after commissions. 45 cents on a $2 stock. And that's almost 20%. And you were really only down about 10. Because if you're short in the 250s and covering 280s, you're down about 10%. But because the borrow fees and commissions are so high, you're doubling your loss for very, very little gain. I generally try to find shorts where the borrow fees are not so outrageous. Typically, 3 cents is probably my limit. Maybe 5 to 7 cents if I really, really like the stock. But generally speaking, I don't follow a lot of other traders where they take really, really high risk trades and stocks with a lot of volatility, really. I like controlled movements. When the movement is more controlled and more predictable, it's less likely you're going to hit a random halt, a random, just a random tail, really. Like you don't want to see this stock, for example, just shoot up into a halt. You don't want to see it go shoot down into a halt. Long or short, it doesn't matter. You just don't want unexpected explosive movement unless it's in your favor. So that's my thought process for a lot of the stocks today. And we're walking away $892 green. So overall, it's a pretty good day. We're going to take this and hopefully build some momentum tomorrow, heading into the long weekend. And yeah, I guess that's it. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next one.